Hello, so welcome back to my YouTube. So today I'm going to be going through how poor GI health, poor gut health, can slow down or affect fat loss in different ways. So let's just first go through how the gut functions, because this will make more sense with me saying this. So first of all, how the gut functions is we actually have to be in a lower stress state. So our mind, it starts in the brain. We have to be in a lower stress state. We have to be calm in order for the GI to work properly. Yeah, we have to then, through the mouth, chew our food and make sure we're not eating on the go, we're not eating in a stress state, we're not eating at our work desk, we're eating in a nice calm environment where we can focus on our meal, we're chewing our food properly so it doesn't create any stress within the gut. Yeah, because if a highly stressed individual will more than likely have poor gut health. Yeah, they'll have slow digestion, they'll not absorb nutrients effectively. So we need to make sure that we're in a non-stress state, we're chewing our food properly, we're not eating on the go or anything like that. Then after we swallow our food, it goes down to the stomach, which is the upper left abdomen. In the upper left abdomen, what happens there in the stomach is that we produce something called stomach acid. Stomach acid is needed for protein digestion. Go more into that later on. And then what happens here with stomach acid, because it's acidic, actually kills off any like bacteria, pathogens, toxins, so we don't actually pass them down into the small intestine and create more inflammation. We'll go more into that as well. So then the next one is the small intestine. The small intestine is where 80 to 90% of nutrient absorption takes place. In the stomach, not much absorption, if any, takes place. It's mainly in the small and large intestine. So then in the small intestine, we absorb all our nutrients. They get broken down. Digestive enzymes are produced by the pancreas and different, like something called villi and the little fingers in our stomach. We'll go through more about them later on. And then it gets, after we've done the majority of the nutrient absorption and more breakdown, it then goes to the large intestine or colon. And what happens here is this is where we pull all the fluid out of the substance that's created from our food, or the substance. And we pull all the fluid out of that, we absorb the fluid, and then we create a stool. Then a stool is then passed, basically. Yeah. We also have the hepatic portal vein, which actually is connected into the small intestine, and nutrients are then sent to the liver to then be distributed to different areas. So everything's processed through the liver. So that's the way the gut functions in a very simplistic way, right? So how can, when this becomes this fascinating system in our body, how can this slow down fat loss if it's dysfunctional? So let's talk about the different dysfunctions. So we first said the first dysfunction could be a highly stressed individual has poor GI health. Why? Because when cortisol's high, what the brain does, we start being in flight or fight mode, which is basically a stressed out state or a sympathetic state. We can potentially have sympathetic dominance where we've got high cortisol throughout the day. What this then does is when we've got higher amounts of cortisol, it sends blood all to our senses, to our eyes, to our ears, to our nose, to our mouth, in order for, because we're in fight or flight, we're trying to get out of a situation. We need our eyes, ears, nose, etc. So what does that do? It pulls blood from the gut. So, and it puts it to different, more important areas at that moment in time. So what does that then do? Slows down gut function, slows down nutrient absorption, slows down nutrient breakdown and food breakdown. So the first point is that if we have a highly stressed individual who has higher amounts of cortisol, therefore cannot break down food, what then happens? Stomach acid becomes lower, because if we've got high amounts of cortisol, it can potentially cause low stomach acid. Stomach acid is needed. It's absolutely vital. So we need stomach acid in order to start the breakdown of protein. And the way it does this is it turns pepsinogen into pepsin. Yeah? So pepsin is the digestive enzyme that is needed to start the breakdown of protein. Imagine a protein, or like well, let's just use a piece of chicken as an example, being chewed up and then going into the stomach. And imagine the chicken had a layer on it. What pepsin peels back that layer in order for other digestive enzymes for the chicken to be open, for then them to break down the chicken, so we actually break it down into nutrients and therefore it's absorbed. So if we've not got higher or the right amount of stomach acid, we cannot break down protein as effectively. If we can't break down protein as effectively, what does that lead to? It leads to poor recovery. It leads to upper abdominal bloating. It leads to inflammation in the gut. If we don't have higher amounts of stomach acid, or we have low stomach acid, then we're going to be more open to infection, because what stomach acid also does, another vital job it does, is it kills off bacteria, kills off toxins within the stomach. So therefore, it can cause more inflammation and therefore poor nutrient absorption. So with poor nutrient absorption and poor protein breakdown, we can potentially lose muscle tissue. So how will it stall your fat loss is you don't lose body fat, you lose weight instead. Yeah, you end up losing everything. You lose fat, yeah, but you also lose muscle tissue. Who wants to do that when they want to actually look the best in ready for summer or the best year round? Nobody. So that is the number one reason that I normally come across. Higher amounts of stress leads to poor food choices as well. So, and then alcohol consumption, poor food choices, alcohol consumption, and high amounts of stress are the main three factors that cause low stomach acid and potentially cause leaky gut further down the line. So if we look at nutrient deficiencies as well, and if we end up developing leaky gut. So leaky gut is where we potentially have low stomach acid, so we're more open to inflammation and bacteria and toxins damaging the gut lining. The gut lining has tight junction proteins in the small intestine, and in the small intestine, these tight junction proteins keep the intestine wall solid, so nothing can pass through unless it wants it to, yeah? But when we have a lot of inflammation in the gut by either too high stress, eating too much processed food, drinking too much alcohol, maybe eating too much gluten or dairy, there are a couple of culprits as well, then this is going to cause more inflammation in the gut, and therefore these tight junction proteins that are knitted together very tight, they end up starting to break away. And then what happens is undigested food, bacteria, toxins, because stomach acid has not been able to kill them off, passes into the bloodstream. What this then causes is systemic inflammation. So systemic inflammation means you've got inflammation around the body. You can have it in the brain, it can create brain fog, or it can go to your joints and it can create like joint pain. Or also it can cause loose stools and diarrhea. So then what this does is if we have a leaky gut, which is what it's called, or intestinal permeability is the scientific term, then what this causes is poor nutrient absorption. And if we've got poor nutrient absorption, what happens? We have lower amount of testosterone. If we have lower amount of testosterone, what can we not do? We can't recover, right? So that's how leaky gut can lead to nutrient deficiencies, low testosterone, brain fog, joint pain, poor recovery. All that leads to lower amount of muscle tissue. And if you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to lose muscle tissue. So you're still going to be able to lose body fat, right? But you're going to lose muscle tissue as well. So you're just going to lose weight. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to keep hold of every frigging gram of muscle that they've got at this moment in time. That should be everybody's goal. No matter what your age, no matter where you're from, no matter what your goal is, that should literally be what you're trying to do. So then if we look at what can then happen, I am being a bit negative here, but I'm going to help you all at the end of this video so you know what to do to prevent this from happening. So what can then happen is you can potentially develop something called candida or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I'm not going to go into these two in too much detail, but basically candida is a yeast overgrowth. So what this will do is the yeast. So in alcohol, yeast is derived from alcohol, or alcohol is derived from yeast, sorry, opposite way around. And what happens when we drink alcohol is we produce something called acetaldehyde. This is a toxin, and the toxin has to be broken down by the liver. And what happens when we drink alcohol? It fucks around with dopamine and serotonin. Dopamine being our motivation and drive neurotransmitter, serotonin being our mood modulating neurotransmitter. So it helps keep us calm, it helps us deal with stress a little bit better. Dopamine also helps us sleep. Dopamine helps us get up and go. Helps us be more motivated. So if we have lower amounts of these, then we're not going to feel like doing anything, yeah? why have I gone into alcohol from Candida? Because Candida is a yeast overgrowth, with higher amounts of yeast in the body, the body starts producing acetaldehyde. What this then does is it fucks around with dopamine and serotonin, causes poor sleep, therefore poor recovery, leading to low testosterone, and therefore creating a whole cascade of different issues. So that's Candida. Small intestinal bacterial overgrowth is what it says. It's an overgrowth of bacteria within the small intestine. This is basically because of poor food choices, alcohol consumption, both of them are, and potentially having a bit of bad luck with it and ended up developing small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. We'll go more into these in different YouTube videos, but for now, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, you'll be presented with an intermittent mixture of constipation and then loose stools. It's like your body will be blocked up for 3-4 days and then you can't get off the toilet for the next 2. And that's a real symptom that I see with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Another one is that you react to high FODMAP foods. When you have high FODMAP foods, if you look at online high FODMAP fruit and veg, if you are experiencing the symptom that I've just said and you react to these high FODMAP different fruit and veg, then that can create an issue and that can potentially lead to loose stools and diarrhea, etc. Both of these issues are small intestinal bacterial overgrowth will lead to nutrient deficiencies, which leads to a whole cascade of issues, leads to poor recovery, leads to low testosterone, leads to losing just weight and losing muscle tissue, not recovering properly, not being able to keep hold of your strength. The same with Candida, but the way Candida works is it'll fuck around with your sleep. You'll not be able to sleep, you'll have insomnia-based symptoms, yeah? And then if we have poor sleep, you're gonna end up with low testosterone. So that's how a dysfunctional GI can potentially slow down fat loss. How we can help is looking after your GI health, yeah? How do we do that? We help manage stress, we chew our food properly, we don't eat in a stress state or on the go, we sit down and we eat our meal, good quality nutritious foods I always say out of a week, you want to be 80 to 90% single ingredient nutritious dense foods, and the other 10 to 20%, it can be more towards processed foods, yeah? This balance and this ratio is fine to stick to, but just the processed foods, you don't want them to cause any form of GI dysfunction, i.e. upper abdominal bloating, diarrhea, loose stools, constipation, because if they do, I'd go more towards a less processed off-plan meal or foods than that. So that is point number 1. Then point number 2 is we want to help repair the gut lining. So you may have heard me talk about zinc L-carnosine in previous YouTube videos. So zinc L-carnosine is the zinc that I recommend to every client, and the reason being is that these days a lot of people are turning more towards processed foods because it's more easily available. What zinc L-carnosine will do is it'll actually help repair the gut lining. So I was talking about leaky gut, the small tight junction proteins breaking away. It actually helps repair them. So zinc L-carnosine at 30 milligrams per day is a good supplement to have. What also helps repair the gut lining is collagen-based foods. So we want to include more collagen-based foods in our diet. So we can include the likes of bone broth. Yeah, bone broth on a daily basis is a powerhouse. We can also use more like sardines, mackerel, salmon, because these are all like bony fish, and collagen is in bones. Yeah, so we can help with the repair of the gut lining. Also, rocket and radish, they'll help stimulate the pancreas and stimulate bile, and they'll stimulate the pancreas to produce pancreatic enzymes in order to help break down our food more effectively and help support that. And a supplement that we can use is something called colostrum. Colostrum is an immunoglobulin that will help modulate globulins within the body and in the gut, and also it'll help repair the gut lining. So we can take 3 grams of colostrum per day, a powdered form. I have 3 grams of colostrum in like my coffee every morning. So it's derived from breast milk, and you may have heard of it in that term. And them are the starter pack for keeping in control of your GI health. The main ones are actually staying away from processed food and alcohol as much as possible. So in my opinion, the main way of keeping in control of your GI health though is going more towards single ingredient foods, and nutrient quality and nutrient density is the number 1 thing. So that means steering away from processed foods and alcohol. And the more you go towards nutrient-dense food and the more you steer away from processed foods and alcohol, that is the #1 factor that everybody needs to do in order to keep in control of the GI health. So that's everything for today's video. If you want to follow me, if you want to ask me questions, you can find me on Instagram. So Nathan_Transcend. Happy to answer any questions anytime. But I'll see you all in the next video.